Ramesh, it's a pleasure to have you.
My pleasure.
How do you think Ayurveda can actually become mainstream and take the regular medicine head on?
See, very simple. I think Ayurveda provides solutions for chronic disease which are not offered by allopathy. And I fundamentally have learned that pretty much what allopathy does is provide symptomatic relief, which is crucial in emergency, but they don't really heal you.
Okay.
So this is inspired from a personal experience wherein my health improved dramatically through Ayurveda. And while my past backdrop is consumer marketing, having taken Pepsi to India and made that a big deal, and also done that with other consumer brands, I began to understand that if there is an opportunity to be able to validate Ayurveda through modern pharma rigor, exactly like what you would do with a pharma synthetic molecule, and I'm able to validate Ayurveda and its system through safety, purity, and efficacy, then I have a game changer. And the game changer is to establish Ayurveda as a credible science. So with that thesis, I went back into the origins. Ayurveda is a 10,000-year tradition. It's actually completely agnostic. And this 10,000-year tradition, of which 5,000 are written, you found that every particular Ayurvedic formulation is a shloka. And that shloka defines what the disease is, what the cure is, what herbs cure it, and how it's manufactured and how it's applied. So from there, we basically went through a process of ensuring that the supply chain was pure. Because when you talk about a herb, it could be the stem, it could be the root, it could be the leaf. But which one is it? So for that, you needed to interpret the Sanskrit again. We did a whole lot of that. And as we went forward, then we basically went through an extensive, complete basis, which starts with chemistry, fingerprinting. It starts with the in vivo, that is animal trials, and then go into open level clinical, and then finally large scale clinical, double blind, placebo controlled monotherapy, exactly like what you would do with the pharma medicine. And I can say the results are spectacular. So if I were to look at it and say, as I look back, I say Ayurveda does indeed solve fundamental problems like metabolic syndrome related problems, which are diabetes, cholesterol, hypertension, inflammation, stress, immunity. And these are all blockbusters. So the thought is, I put my money in it, I put my money where my mouth is. And much of this inspiration comes because it helped heal me, so I'm sure it can do that for others. The other corollary is, because we have 70,000 patients, we have a clinical history and some clinical experience. May not be formal clinical trials, which stands up to the rigor of what constitutes clinical trials, but at the same time, that body of knowledge helps you basically take Ayurveda closer to the mainstream when you support it with modern science. And in that context, we're trying to establish it to the US FDA. Because if you can actually comply with the type of norms that a US FDA applies, then suddenly you have the, in a sense, the stamp of authority to say, US FDA thinks I'm good and therefore I'm going to be good in terms of getting people to believe that we are the right product at the right time.
If you do not have that cultural affinity, it's difficult to take it mainstream or acceptability level in the mainstream, So the question I'm asking is, homeopathy has been trying it for decades, okay, with only so much success. Ayurveda is coming up, there's acceptability, just as yoga has become acceptable. But it is still the challenge. So let us talk about the clinical trials and the processes that other allopathy medicines go through. So maybe there is some, parallels we can draw. And so people understand, how this could be mainstream and really target the diseases that you mentioned earlier.
See, it's very simple. We are going through the entire process just as much as any pharma medicine does from a scientific basis. But let's see, how do you commercialize it? How do you get belief? Very simple. First of all, I have a contrary perspective. I think the world is extraordinarily focused on wellness, and there's a perception that wellness and natural is connected.
Sure.
You want to go back into nature, you want to have clean living, and you want to do all of these things. So if wellness is connected with nature, all that we are going back into nature which is, and maybe back into ethnicity. Ayurveda is one, but I also believe Ayurveda was essentially carried across and became traditional Chinese medicine because it went with Buddhism or the Buddhist cultural influence. So, and if you look at what's happening in the United States, there is a very strong cultural influence of yoga. And so as you mentioned, if yoga has, say, 30 million people in the US who are active enthusiasts, and I'm able to tell them, guys, the sibling of yoga is Ayurveda, I have a natural entree for getting them to try me, particularly in the context when they are disaffected with the side effects of allopathy.
Right.
And they realize that all of these allopathic medicines, yes, they prevent death, but they don't really cure. And I think the solutions, therefore, are intrinsic to your body balance. And that body balance is generally provided by natural products. So to that extent, what you lack is a formal process of scientific validation,
yes,
which gives potency to the claim that nature works. Because I think the entire combination of the healthcare system as it is in the US is basically working towards ensuring that they support their own businesses. And as of now, they haven't embraced, or at least they're beginning to reluctantly look at natural solutions. But fundamentally, it's based on a synthetic single molecule solution,
right,
all of which, frankly, provides symptomatic relief and no cure.
So let me take you back to India. We know Ayurveda, it's part of our culture, but the adoption rate isn't where it should be.
Correct.
Because Ayurveda and other natural benefits as beyond the reach of an average middle class person. It's become, very expensive. So it is the medicine of choice by the upper middle class and the rich. Why can't we take it down to the lowest denominator and say this is the cure? Because there's a big struggle still for the common man in India to reach and get cured by the allopathy, because the resources are still on there. If they are there, there are, not as systematic as it should be. There's many factors to it. So the question is, why is Ayurveda going and addressing the needs of the rich?
It's very simple. I don't think Ayurveda is well accepted. People are aware of it, they have sympathy to it, but not accepted because they don't know if it's safe, whether it's pure, and whether it really works. So that is something that we are taking care of in the first instance through scientific validation. The second aspect is Ayurvedic medicines per se are not expensive. What is expensive is the treatments, especially in the Kerala variety, which has got a lot of massages and oils and so on. That's expensive because it's elaborate and it's a certain period of time. Though on the other hand, you come up with a complete and comprehensive healing, in terms of being able to work this out. However, what you say on affordability, my belief is today Western medicine is, if it's the paradigm, the US is not able to pay for its healthcare system.
Sure.
So we are taking exactly that particular model into India or to China. So it's certainly not affordable. So you're doing MRIs, you're doing blood tests, looking at snapshots in time. So what you need is a natural solution. So I think from that perspective, Ayurveda is definitely far more affordable. In a sense, in peacetime, when you don't have crisis. So without a doubt it is. But with science, I think we can go a lot further. For example, you can do dose optimization. We've done dose optimization which says how an Ayurvedic proprietary medicine can work on 50 milligram per kilogram basis, but equally it can be optimized to work on a 1 mg per kilogram of body weight. So there's a whole number of ways by which you can optimize this particular dosage and make it much more affordable. It's a question of making sure that it works, making sure that it's safe, making sure that it's standardized, meaning it's pure, and then you work on dose optimization to improve affordability. But as a basic premise, I think Ayurveda prevents, and prevention is a lot cheaper than cure.
So if I ask you, beyond your evangelism of Ayurveda as an entrepreneur, where is your biggest hurdle to get this to the mainstream?
See, the biggest hurdle, like in any one of these situations in an Ayurvedic product, which is not an emergency product, will be to capture people's imagination. I'll give you an example. I started Pepsi in India. And this whole Pepsi explosion or the growth, this was at a time when foreign direct investment to India was not allowed. Yehi hai, right choice, baby, aha, captured the imagination. So in a nutshell, what I'm interested in doing is taking the kind of campaign that we put together to sell a Pepsi, which is really a soda pop, dark colored, caramelized sugar water, nice product, but can I take the same principles and use it for something in wellness? Because people need to invest in themselves. Because if you're healthy, at the end of the day, that's all that matters.
As an entrepreneur, I know you will succeed. There's a lot riding on it and a lot of hope of many other people. Wishing you all the best.
Thank you very much.